Welcome to the third day of Ooblet controversy. After I made my video, the topic has quite exploded among the gaming circles, with a lot of very influential YouTubers picking it up and covering it. What surprised me though is just how much support the Ooblet developers have gotten from other developers. I am in a few developer groups. For I have finished game development and I may or may not do an indie game at some point in my life, so it's useful to just hang about. Game development is no longer exclusive to just people that really know their shit. It's really accessible to everybody. If anyone wants to try, really just fire up Unity and learn basic programming. Not hard, a lot of that can be done from YouTube tutorial videos. But that is off topic. So as I said, there was a topic posted in Indie Game Chat about Ooblets. The post itself, while it was also quite angry towards gamers, was very long. So instead, I just picked up some of the comments that really show off the kind of us versus them mentality that exists in the gaming industry, and I honestly do not know why. I don't think that I know a single other industry where such an us versus them is between creators and consumers. I suppose it's because it's a creative field, and unlike a painting, consumers get passionate about a project, but at the same time, to somebody else, it's their baby. So there's probably some clashes, and probably some clashes give birth to very unsatisfied and sad people. But honestly, when you're posting such statements online, I just can't help but say that you must be in the wrong industry, because this is not the way that you should be talking to your potential buyers. Either way, this is just statements from the Facebook group. I respect them for all of that, especially the last thing with things to be upset about. People complain about EGS way too much. Their announcement is fine. People read into it in a condescending tone that isn't there. The truth is, gamers like to think of themselves as experts, so when an expert explains something to them, they feel insulted that you insinuate that they're wrong about something. I don't think an apology is necessary at all. The customer isn't always right, and a very vocal sect of gamers are in fact toxic. If it's helping game developers get a better deal than one Steam puts up, I don't see what is wrong. Yeah, entitled toxic fans. Oh, they just passionate excuses, don't cut it here. Need an occasional cold shower to put on some perspective. Great response. It's worrying that people could be so loyal to such a stagnant status quo and hail it as a king of all. They did nothing wrong. Because of all of this controversy, we're talking about their game. Awesome response from what seems like a cool dev. Not heard of this before, but will dev check it out now. I'm fully in support of every single one of their posts. There's quite a lot of wrong going around here. One of the biggest wrongs is that I think game developers cannot see their game from the perspective of consumers. They think, oh, it's more money for me, why can't you just be nice and happy for me? Why do you want me to suffer? When in reality you have to think about the accessibility for others. And also, calling your audience toxic doesn't really matter if there is a segment of them that will be very nasty to you. This is gonna be taken as addressed to 100% of your audience. People are gonna be turned away, and they're gonna be turned away fast. Really concerns me though that such statements fly around on the internet so openly from people making indie games. It's kind of like they feel as if they're a big shot when very obviously they're not. You would think maybe it's just one small group on the internet, yeah, but if you read Twitter responses, they're not that much better. Tim Sweeney, person behind Epic, said in response to community feedback I have reviewed the tone of the Ooblets exclusivity announcement, and we wish to make the following official statement. It was awesome. Well, fuck you, Sweeney. Nice to know that you also support treating your customers like shit. I suppose we have already known that from Fortnite, but still. Poggers says, love to see the people they described in their announcement mad about being described in their announcement. Mr. Square Peg, love you, Tim. Michael Kidder, gamers tell it like it is. Ooblets developer tells it like it is. Gamers, wait, that's illegal. Jason Schreier is the only non-developer in the group. He is a games journalist. In the last few weeks, I've actually talked to 2 different indie game devs whose deals with Epic ensure that no matter how many copies they sell, they're at least break even. A rare bit of stability in this volatile industry. But oh no, gamers have to use a store with fewer features. Well, yes, I am sorry, consumers will look after themselves. I don't know how many times I had to make this statement, but it is always true when I make it. When somebody enters your store to buy something, they're only looking at how convenient and good your store is and what the product that they want is. They're not looking for your sub-story. They're not interested in how you live in your house. They just want good products. So after reading a whole bunch of responses from a whole bunch of different indie games devs working on different indie game dev things, I asked quite sincerely, why do you hate gamers so much? And I asked it to the indie game dev Facebook group. Every one of you can join it, by the way. Responses were a bit of a mixed bag. Some people were actually really shocked by this question because a lot of people don't. What you're seeing is this weird bubble between journalists, just like Kotaku, Epic Games Store, and select developers that are for the most part indie game developers, as unreasonable as that sounds, all creating this little echo chamber of, your customers are dumb and toxic and abusive. It doesn't mean that that's necessarily the opinion of every game dev in the industry. And yeah, I have read a lot of articles. They do get a lot of abuse. They get such abuse as X person needs to be doxxed, or you should kill yourself over that kind of update. And yes, these kind of responses are very stressful, but you gotta remember, everybody on the internet gets them. The last time I got one, I believe, was releasing a Sims-related video, where I'm pretty sure the person wished me to go die. I kinda just shrugged at it, really? Really, dude? But these were select responses that were more of a negative tone, except for Ernest Placido that went on a whole rant that honestly I agree with. But let's start with Jen Cote. A lot of them are incredulously entitled, unbearably so. They're very unaware of the amount of manpower, brainpower, creativity, sleepless nights, crunch times and deadlines, production milestones everyone has to meet, mandatory overtime, etc. They're paid for a product and that's fine, everyone has expectations. What you don't have a right to, however, is being willfully ignorant about just how much heart and soul a dev or anyone puts into what they create, and then for fun either troll the devs directly involved and make them hate something they spent so many nights working on. You also don't get unabashedly hide behind the keyboard and type shitty insults just because you disconnected from the server once or twice. I'm all for gaming, but my god! The only other people as toxic as gamers I've met in real life are zealots, and at least they have the common decency to say please and thank you more often than not. Having seen a lot of human behavior, I wouldn't say so. I have worked in the software industry, and software industry is practically just as toxic. Have you ever tried dealing with the NHS behind closed doors? Because boy, that's a fun experience. Add these extra features for no cost, and to meet the same deadline that you had before, we're pulling our money in, we're pulling our project. And what does that mean? That means that your manager is standing there having a shouting match at your desk because he doesn't care about what is possible or impossible, he cares about keeping the client. The industry that you're in will shape your perception of what kind of people are outside of your industry by thinking that they're better people. And even if your customer group, the company that you work with, genuinely making stupid decisions, not everyone in that company will be stupid. It's just that the decision that they come up with is stupid. So I wouldn't say that all NHS employees are so retarded, because I dealt with their tech department, not their doctors and nurses that are doing their best. And even in that tech department, you deal with 1 or 2 people, you don't deal with the whole of the tech department. For all I know, their tech department is really nice in general. Well, rant over. Rinley and IPA, all you have to do is join Discord following a game being developed to see the outright hatefulness and entitlement. Obviously, it doesn't go for all gamers, but there is an underbelly of little shits. It's not an age-based thing either. I've seen grown-ass 40-year-old men whining about a game being shit before they even play it, instead of leaving the dev group. They stay and whine and bitch and complain and demand attention from the devs. It's insane, I don't get it. Mons Solace. There are gamers, people who are capable of enjoying video games like functional human beings and understand that products and people are able to have flaws or not being made for them, and gamers whose entire identity is based on their relationship with video games and intensely dislike everything that threatens it and handle it by being as shitty as possible because the internet is not real life, bruh. Well, Preston, I don't think hate is the right word. I think contempt or exhaustion among a lot of devs is a better word, because you should never outwardly hate the people you're selling your product to. That is correct. And if we're being forward about it, the thing that people hate isn't gamers, it's reactionaries. You shouldn't be getting death threats for taking the Epic Games Store route. Doxing due to some get woke go broke crusade isn't cool. If it makes for a more fun game, you shouldn't be getting hate for historical inaccuracy, etc., etc. The reactionaries in question are usually people who allow video games to define who they are at the core, because they don't have much else. It's a really complex problem to unpack, and this is why community managers and PR directors are so important. We could split hairs for days about what we mean by gamer here, because there are generalized people who play games, and then there's people who still jerk off to Gamergate. But I'm Ho, reactionary, accurately describes the gamers in question. I don't think anyone hates the consumer just because they play video games. I think that still misrepresents a lot of the issues happening in the video game industry, because a lot of reactionaries are very polite people. They put their viewpoints very politely and very often are told to go fuck themselves. Especially when it was coming to the historical accuracy controversies. I know the game that he's talking about, and I don't think that being mad at your fans and being historically inaccurate added to the fun factor of said game. He is right that it's a very complex issue. One of the worst problems in the game dev field in general is the overwork and large hours that they pull, which is funnily enough partly to blame from Epic, because they have overworked their devs for 2 full-on years doing crunch time on Fortnite, making everybody else make sure that they keep up with the Fortnite's development log, meaning any other multiplayer shooter had to have about the same update pattern to compete. Which is horrible. Essentially, people are getting overworked and being pushed to doing live service for their video games for a prolonged amount of time which results in indies overworking themselves voluntarily to try and keep up with the live service game demand in order to be able to feed themselves. And honestly, I don't think that there is as much live service game demand as the industry makes these people think. But here we come to Ernest Placido rant, and he honestly seems to be like a decent human being. There's definitely a sense of entitlement from gamers. However, I had to step myself back several times to see why they say the stuff that they do, and think of myself more as a consumer and how consumers get invested in products and the mutual trust relationship there must be between producer and consumer. And sometimes the outrage can be too much, but underneath there is definitely an understandable emotional factor to why consumers act the way that they do. If we're talking about Epic deals, yeah, a lot of people have been supporting the development of their favorite game, maybe even provided monetary support through Patreon or Kickstarter. And which platform the developer chooses to be on actually matters a lot to the consumer. Games are easier to get involved in than shows and movies because players invest plenty of hours into the game. Developers can often get into the mindset that they're developing a product that they own and therefore have full control over, but by sharing your progress and discussing with them and creating a community around your game, you let fans in and get involved into the process. Perhaps their outrage can go too far, but they're disappointed in you when they make decisions that go against them, indefinitely understandable. I cannot read today, I'm so sorry. They've been kicked out of something they felt like they were a part of. Remember these people who love your work enough to act up when you make a decision they don't think is the best for the game. It's just respect for someone who appreciates what you do to be able to talk it out with them. I think a lot of devs would actually solve a lot of their problems being more transparent. I found my Discord won't act up if I simply told them, I need more time, I've had troubles this month such as X and Y. This is what I've done and this is what else I need to do. We're not going to make any progress, so we had to cut back on X. My budget is running out, so we had to get X out of the door unless we can receive X amount of money. I think a lot of these Epic deals would actually be met with acceptance if developers simply said, this is my monthly expense, this is how much we got. If we don't do this deal, we could either just give up on the game and it won't be completed, or we can take the deal but unfortunately delay the game for other platforms. All too often, negative decisions just come out of nowhere and they can become a backhand to the fans because they don't understand where the decision comes from. I think this is a very sane way of looking at things. And I am gonna post a link to the Facebook group for indie game devs if anyone wants to go there and have a chat with them themselves. Other than that, thank you for watching, and I would like to hear your own opinions on it. In my opinion, you should always try and treat others with kindness, be it your customers or be it the developer that you're addressing. Try and address people nicely in general, even if they're being below that. Like with the whole Ooblets thing, I made that video and I left their Discord, and that whole mess is just still going. It's just going and going and going. The developers just responding, and honestly, why? Why? There's obviously not gonna be any sort of agreement and you're just gonna piss off more people. So what does being hostile do in this situation? Because in my opinion, it does absolutely nothing from either side. It's best to just put these kind of people on the ignore and forget that they have existed in the first place.